Everybody, we have someone very special here at the CHIVE office to give a speech today, and he's someone many of you at the office have met. He is U.S. Navy SEAL and Medal of Honor recipient Mike Thornton. Don't come out yet. Don't come out. For those of you who don't know what the Medal of Honor is, it is the highest award you can bestow upon an active duty or a posthumous serviceman or veteran, and very few got it. In the Vietnam War, in which Mike was a part of, only 15 people received that honor that were living, many more that died posthumously. He was one of 3 Navy SEALs that received it for valor on the battlefield, and a story that frankly you have to hear to believe. But more importantly, he's also my friend. I didn't know who Mike was one day when he came into the CHIVE office. As everyone knows, if you are an active duty or veteran on Thursday afternoon or Friday, you can walk straight through the CHIVE doors, and all you have to do is present your military ID, and they'll wave you right through up to the bar. And Mike was sitting at the bar, not making a big deal about him being a big deal. And, you know, we just struck up a conversation, and he was just a genuinely nice person. He's a great torchbearer for the Medal of Honor recipients, although when I was talking to him, he did not tell me he had won the Medal of Honor until he presented me with his challenge coin. And when he did, it was kind of cool because I was in a bad place. As many of you know, I had broke my leg in about 10 places, and for the first couple weeks after I came back, it's hard. Like, I couldn't talk. I had been intubated. I couldn't walk. And I was just getting back to just kind of going to work again, I suppose. And that was hard for me. So it was the first Friday I was at work, and I'll be honest, I'd probably use a pick-me-up. And here I am talking with this guy. He's just a nice dude in his office, and he presents me with this coin. I look down, and it has the symbol of the Medal of Honor on it. Obviously, everyone knows what that is. And I was like, why'd you come here today? And Mike said, I came here because of you, John. And I said, why? And he said, because I've been down on a hole before, and I know how to get out. And, you know, being in the place I was, that wasn't easy, and really turned my day around. It was nice. And then he went back to shooting the shit back at the bar with all the other active duties and Navy SEALs who were there. And, you know, as soon as he left, they were like, "Do you know who that was?" And I was like, "You assholes should have told me who that was." And it was just one of those cool moments that I had with a guy who is one of the most selfless human beings you'll ever meet, who came here to the CHIVE not to celebrate himself, but just to help me out one day. So I put a story up on the CHIVE, and it went viral, and he's back again today to actually tell his story, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Thornton.
Cut it. We got to get on with the story here. I want to thank the CHIVE team, because you guys are a team, and that's what it's like SEAL team is, a team. It's not about I, but John, you, and Leo, and everybody else that helps support the great country called America, and what we stand for, because freedom is not free, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit about me. I'm here. I was born and raised in the hills of South Carolina. My father was my greatest mentor, as John and I talked about. He only had a 6th grade education. He served our great country from 37 to 47 in the Philippines. My mom gave me love, and she was a disciplinarian, but not like Daddy, because every time my mother switched me, my father had to beat me with the belt when I got home. So all this stuff out there, it's not so bad to get whooped, because every time I got whooped, I needed to be whooped. I saw a great movie called The 5 Sullivan Brothers, and the way that family was joined together is the reason why I said, I'm going to join the Navy one day, because they gave up all their lives to save each other and their families aboard the USS Portland back in World War II, and that's how the movie Private Ryan came out, and that's why they went back in after that. Then I saw the movie Richard Whitmire. It's called The Navy Frogman, and I said, that's for me. I was an unbelievable athlete back then, a great swimmer. I held records in my mid-teen area in South Carolina, and I was brought up around the swimming pool and stuff like that. I wasn't very smart. I had dyslexia really bad. So for all you kids out there, just never give up and never quit. Even though you have something against you, you have to strive and make it better every day. So that's just for you young men and women. You may have something, and my son has dyslexia. And the great thing about my son, I identified with him after we found out what he had, that he had one missing wire, and I said, your dad has 5 missing wires to the brain. But guess what? I'm still affected. So that's a good way to let the kids know you never quit, you never give up on yourself, and that's something my father taught me a long time ago, long before I was ever in the Navy SEAL team. I joined the teams, and I joined the Navy in 1967. I went to, back then it was called underwater demolition recruit training. I left. We started off with 129 guys in my class, and we graduated with 18, but 4 of the guys were sent back to the class behind us. I had great guys in that class like Mike Lacaze, Hal Kirkendall, and it was just a great team of uniting. The most important thing, we had a camaraderie and love for each other that you will never understand. And that's what a team is all about. Went to Vietnam, then went back to Vietnam, then went to Thailand, and I was on my 4th tour overseas. And I was up in a place called I Corps, which is in the northern part of Vietnam. I was sent up there we were doing pilot rescues and stuff like that because they had pulled, in April of 1972, they had pulled all the American troops out. And then in September of 1972, they had pulled everybody out with the exception of Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, and Marine Recons. And then this is when we were asked to do an operation. My officer in charge, which is part of the book by Honor Bound, is a guy by the name of Tommy Norris. Tommy Norris was my officer in charge of the book, and not the book, but of the operation. And I have never operated with Tommy. I knew Tommy. I know when I first checked in with Tommy, he says, your reputation is way ahead of you, because I was kind of a renegade. Loved to operate, but I wasn't much on taking orders or anything else. I kind of made my own mind up back then in those days, which I still do today. But I have 2 special ladies that keep me straight now, so that's a great thing. The minds to be out of Saigon said, hey, we want to run this special operations. It was called a recon and a prisoner snatch. And what we found out, even into the day's years, the best way to get great intelligence is a prisoner snatch. And you grab this prisoner, you bring him back and get the up-to-date intelligence. It's not 6 months old or what we're taking. Of course, back in Vietnam, in that period of time, we had, our radios aren't nothing like satellites. We had no GPS. We had nothing of that type of sort as we have for our men and women in uniform today. And so we went in. So what we did, we set up this operation. The only people that knew about the operation was Tommy, the Commodore, which is our big boss, and we handpicked these Navy SEALs, Vietnamese SEALs called Lui Ninh Dai. And basically I handpicked 2 of them, Dane and Quan, which I'd worked with them on 2 previous tours to Vietnam, and we had been in many firefights, and I knew that they would be able to handle the situation no matter what the odds were. So what we did, and the officer we were going to take with us was another guy, he's Lieutenant Quan. Well, Lieutenant Quan, as the CHIVE is, it was a little crazy like me. And he got drunk 2 nights before the operation, ran the boat into the dock, and blacked both his eyes and sunk the boat. So he was out of the operation. So they brought up a young man from a place called Hoi An, and he brought him up here, and a young guy by the name of Ty. Didn't know Ty, never operated with Ty. I had operated with Lieutenant Quan, and so they said we had to have a Vietnamese officer. The reason the Americans were going to go, because they knew that if the Americans were there, they felt like we had the support. You know, if something happened, the Americans would be on the operation, and we'd get the support that we needed from sea, shore, air support, or this, that, and the other. So what we did, Tommy and I were the only two that knew about the operation. So we did the operation. I picked out all the armament and the ammunition and what we needed to take for the operation. And I told Quan what he would take. I told Dang what he would take. I told Ty what he'd take. Even though Ty was the Vietnamese officer in charge, he didn't know what the operation was about. And so we got aboard these two junks, and they're made of concrete, and they're Vietnamese junks, which a lot of people said, how does concrete float? Well, you tell me how an aircraft floats. It's made of steel, so it floats. I'm not an engineer, but I mean, we did. So we went straight out to sea. Now we're up near a place called Qua Viet, and we're going to the Qua Viet, but we're in a place called Tuy Nan, which was northeast of Hue City. Well, the NVA were trying to take over Quan Tri at the time, and they have already crossed the Qua Viet River, and they wanted us to, the basic plan was to go in, do a recon, do a body snatch, and bring out the intelligence. And what they really wanted to do with this operation, like they did in Incheon in Korea in 1952, was do a big amphibious landing there, cut off the logistics, and sign a treaty in Paris that North Vietnam would be North Vietnam and South Vietnam would be South Vietnam. Well, times to be, of course, we know that didn't happen. So what we did, we took the thing, and I gave the instructions of the compass course to the captain of the junks. As I said, we had two junks, and we started at sea. And we went dead east for 20 miles out of line of sight. Then we turned directly north and went straight north, which was all the way up to the Qua Viet, which was right on the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And we got there, and we were supposed to have been basically what we call is as you get up there, they're going to shoot us an azimuth from two ships. So you have a ship here and a shoot there. They shoot from the radar. They give us a joint where they cross over. That was supposedly be our point of insertion. But what happened, we were sitting here. Well, the ship, the Newport News, had to leave because it had 8-inch guns, and the Quan Tri was being overtaken, so they had to leave. So the USS Morgan shot an azimuth, and the guy was about 3 degrees off. So when he shot the azimuth and he saw where we were, they tried to cross those points like that, and we thought that would be the Qua Viet River, but it wasn't. He put us 13 and a half clicks. A click is 1,000 meters north of the DMZ. So we're actually in North Vietnam at the time. So what we did, we jumped in these rubber rafts. We had 4 guys paddling, and then Tommy Norris, the officer in charge, myself, Quan and Dang. Dang was the radio operator, and Ty, the young Vietnamese officer. We paddled in approximately a mile off the coast. It was pretty dark. We slipped in the water, and we swam inland to the shoreline of the coast of Vietnam, which we thought we were still in South Vietnam. We got in the area, just to give you an idea what I was carrying 780 rounds of 5.56. I was carrying 8 frag grenades, 2 smoke grenades, and 2 concussion grenades, a starlight scope, 3 law rockets, and then all my medical gear and all that stuff. And we swam, and of course, we didn't inflate our life jackets because we don't keep our silhouettes low in the water. Got to the thing, I took out the starlight scope and looked. Now we all understand what starlight scopes, we see the stuff now. Now it's a little bitty single thing about that big, and you can look with night vision goggles. Back then it was about that long, about that big around. And it had 2 D-cell batteries that illuminated everything. So I couldn't see anything, so Tommy told me to go on up over the beach. I went up over the beach. I took the Starlight scope out. I looked to the north, I looked to the west, and I looked to the south. I saw nothing near me. At that time, I called each guy up one at a time. Tommy was the last guy to get up on the beach, and he gets on the beach and he says, "What do you think?" I said, "I think we may be in the wrong place because I don't see a river, and as big as the mouth of the Quaviette, it's kind of like the mouth of, well, let's say, the Mississippi coming out. I mean, it was a gigantic river." So basically, Tommy told me, so I took all my gear off with the exception of my gun and the Starlight scope. I went north by myself, came back, said no river. Went south, came back, said no river. Put my gear back on. He says, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, you're the officer in charge, but I know we're in the wrong place." He said, "What we'll do what we call a horseshoe. We'll insert, get as much intelligence as we possibly can, and then we will extract before daylight, go out, rest, and make sure we're inserted at the proper place and do the operation over again." I said, "Yes, sir." So that time, Tommy took out on the point. We put the Vietnamese between Tommy and I was the rear security. As we patrolled, we saw bonfires. We saw Russian 188 howitzers, which is bigger than the 105 American howitzers. We saw tanks. We could see movement all over the place. And so we really got really tight at that period of time. The Vietnamese with us, because I knew enough Vietnamese, I could understand what was being said by the enemy. Their eyeballs is about that big now. They knew that we were in a world of crap. But you know, Tommy and I kept them calmed down and said, "Hey, don't worry about it." As we patrolled on, Tommy said, "I'm whipped." I said, "I'll be the point man," because being the point, you're leading the way and it takes a lot more energy and, I'd say, more stressful. So as we're moving around like this, I come up and I look at the top of this hill on this plateau, and it was a Russian tank up there, which is a Vietnamese tank, but it was made by Russia. And I got down and Tommy said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, we know for a fact we're in North Vietnam, but at this period of time, I say, I recommend that we get down in this creek bed, and we get in this creek bed for 3 reasons. First of all, it'd keep our silhouette very low. We didn't have to worry about tripping over somebody. And the other thing, we could move much faster out the creek bed." Well, in Vietnam, they have 18 feet of tidal rise. So if you was to go down to Galveston or the Gulf Coast, it's like 4.5 feet. So you imagine how far that goes there. So you imagine how far the surf goes out at 18 feet. It's kind of like the Hudson Bay, they have 54 feet tidal. I mean, the bay's wide open and then it's shallow. So said, "Okay, that's a good idea." So I took point, got in the water, they all got behind me, and we moved down this stream. Well, the water was going out, like I say, the tidal range. So as we were moving down, we were moving really quick and moving fast, and we come up and we hear all this noises, and what it was, I heard a couple of dogs barking, and there was a village to the south of us up on this thing. So Tommy said, "Crawl up there and see what's going on," because we could hear the ocean, the waves breaking on the ocean. And so I crawled up there, and it was a quick reaction force of NVA, North Vietnamese Army. And I started counting, they had their guns outside, and I tried to count the number, but this was like 3:30 in the morning. And I came back and I told Tommy what it is. Well, to the north of us, there's this gigantic lagoon. Lagoon is, if you ever flew across the Mississippi River and you see how the river changed, and you see all these lakes to one side, same thing in tidal lagoons. And this thing was about 2 miles wide and 3 miles long. And I told Tommy, I went out and did a recon a little bit, came back, told him, we have the enemy to the south of us. We have this lagoon got our western flank. We have the ocean on our eastern flank. We have this gigantic bunker on top, which we thought it was just a big sand dune, but it was actually 20, 25 feet high, and it was actually a bunker, had a tunnel down inside of it. And basically, and after that, we just have small sand dunes, anywhere from 3 to 4 to 6 feet to maybe up to 8 feet high. Tommy said, a good idea. So we moved down the lagoon, and we moved up, and Tommy got the radio with Dang and got on top of the bunker. I went out to the point to where I could watch the enemy, because that was our first, as I say, a real threat to us, which was the 50 to 75 people in the quick reaction force. And I took Juan, which I had worked with, I gave him the Starlight scope, and he went to the north end of the big bunker, and he was watching for any movement there. And I had Ty, the young officer, about 15 yards behind me along the beach line so he could look down the beach. But my whole focus was basically the bad guys and the movement coming this way. Well, at this period of time, Quan comes around, and it's still dark, and he had the Starlight scope, and he says, he comes to me, does like this, and he goes like this. So he's telling me there's two enemies coming from the north. And what these guys were doing, they were patrolling down the beach. And by patrolling down the beach, one was on the high water line looking for footprints, and the other guy was down on the ocean right as the tide's falling out. And what they're doing, they're looking for bladders. And what they used to do, the North Vietnamese would come out with these bladders, and they'd blow them up, and they'd put supplies, they'd put medical, they'd put ammunition, stuff like that. And so when the tide came in and the bladders deflated, it would stay on the beach, and they'd pick up their supplies that way. So they knew there were supposedly supplies coming in. So I went back and I looked at the Starlight scope, and I saw the guy walking across the water, and I saw the guy on the high water line. It's like if you go to a beach where the kelp comes in, they leave all the trash and it moves back out again. And so I came back and I crawled up and I was talking with Tommy. I said, I will take this guy out, and I'll send Ty down to take out the guy on the water, because he was about 150 feet above in front of the other guy, and later on it got to be 200 feet in front of the other guy. And with the waves crashing and all the noise that's going on, to give him a good time, because Ty was about 5'9", he probably weighed about 170, 165, which was big for a Vietnamese, and he was a very athletic young man. But Quan was only like 5'2", but he was as mean as they get, and so was Dane. And so I told Quan that I will knock this guy out, you take care of him. So I knocked the guy out when he came around the corner, and I knocked him out, and Quan taped his mouth, and with rigger's tape taped his arms up, and we secured him. So I'm running down inside the sand dunes, and I'm looking at Ty going like this. I'd given Ty what we call a hush puppy. And a hush puppy was a 22 long pistol with a silencer on it. And the range of it is probably between this ladder rail right here to that door. And after that, it loses all the suppression because of all the baffles we have within the weapon itself. So he stands up with this cap pistol instead of going down behind the guy like I told him to brief him to. And I take full responsibility, because if I'd have known what I knew then, I would have taken that position had Tommy come down and taken my position. He stood up behind a sand dune and yelled, "Lide my land," that means stop, come here. He's got a cap pistol, this guy's got an AK-47. This guy opens fires on him with 2 shots. I said, oh my God. So I'm running after the bad guy. He's running past me going back to Tommy and them. He never even fired a shot. And so I'm chasing the guy down because I know he's headed to the base. Well, everybody doesn't have a radio like we do now, or a cell phone or anything like that. But back then, they didn't have radios in between everybody. So what they would do, they'd fire shots in the air. And I said he fired 2 shots, and 2 shots could mean one thing or another thing. But I knew if I could get him before he got to the village, if I could eliminate him and bring him back and put him in the lagoon or where I wanted to dispose of the guy, then I thought it would give us enough time to be able to break contact, get out of there, call in, extract. Because the last word I heard from Tommy is that I have contact with Woody, but they thought we were down at Quaviette, where we're actually 13 and a half clicks north of the Quaviette. we're up near the Ben Ha River, which is in North Vietnam. And so we fell back. So I ran to the entrance to the trail going to the village. I dropped to one knee and I shot 2 rounds. I hit the young man in the back. He fell to the ground. And when I look up, there's about 75 bad guys coming at me, face on. This period of time, Tommy runs off the top of the bunker. Remember I said we carried in law rockets. I carried in 3, Tommy carried in 2. The law rocket is what you see on TV where there's an anti-tank weapon where you open it up, you press a little button and it shoots around. Well, Tommy wasn't trying to hit anybody. He was trying to cause an explosion, because as soon as it hits, after it goes 25 feet, it hits something, it explodes into the tree line, and hopefully that would drop them, make them drop down and give me a chance to break contact. It did. I was able to get back across the creek bed. Remember I said the creek bed went between the sand dunes and the village where the bad guys were. So I got back across the way. Tommy went back up on the hill. I picked up shooting these guys and only shot 1 shot at a time. Always make 1 shot, 1 kill is what I've always said. And I told Quan to come up behind me. I told Ty to go take over Quan's position. So what I did, we had me on the point. So all this is sand dunes out here. Had me here in the middle. I had Quan 50 yards behind me where I could see him. So when they tried to flank along the beach, Quan would take care of them, because I know Quan was very aggressive and he was a great fighter, unbelievable fighter. And I had Tommy and Dang on the top of the sand dunes, so they had a better view of everybody looking down that way. And we had Ty behind us, making sure we wouldn't be flanked on the from the north. And then of course we had the lagoon, which I could watch the lagoon, so I could move over to stop anybody trying to flank me on this side. So basically for 2.5 hours, this firefight went on, us. And what I would do, I would say 4 guys are coming this way over where John is, and they would lift their heads up, and about as soon as I saw their head go up, I'd shoot about 1 inch into the sand. I'd get a headshot and I'd knock these guys off. Then I'd go over this. Then I'd move my position to another position and I'd throw a grenade over here. And then what I'd do, I'd move even forward up and I would do the same thing there. Then I'd fall back, and so when they tried to flank me around my side, there's Quan out there laying down the fire, eliminating the bad guys coming around. So basically what they didn't know if we had 3 people, which basically had 3 people firing, because Ty had never fired around. He's still looking, thank God, down north of us. And I'm moving all over the place. So I gave them they didn't know if they were fighting 15 people or 3 people or 5 people. All they just knew, they were getting shot at over here, they're getting shot at over there, they got shot over here, they got shot over here. And all it was big Mike Thornton just rolling everywhere in the world. Eliminate as many of the bad guys as I possibly could. Well, during that period of time, they had took all this property, this real estate as I call it. It moved me back about approximately 50 feet from Tommy the bunker. And at that period of time, I knew I had eliminated many of the bad guys. And on this side, these 4 guys came up to me, and there's a sand dune probably a little bit larger than a screen sofa here, and about 8 feet high. And there's 4 guys on one side, on me on the other side. And we had captured what we call Chi-Com grenades, and it's a very crude, rude grenade, but it worked. It almost looked like the old German Mauser, like this. It had a handle on it. It was a piece of lead, and they serrated in the inside of it. They pack it with the demolitions or the TNT they got out of our bombs that didn't explode, and then they put this crude method in there. They had nitrate in there, and what they do, they had a little piece of wire like striking a match. You pull it out and it would burn, and then when it burned, it would actually explode. But it didn't ever explode because we had taken cases of these and pulled them. The fastest one that ever went off was like 14 seconds. So And the longest one went on like for 28 seconds. So a second it would go 1,000, 2,000. Well, of course, the American grenade is 4,000, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You better have it out of your hand at 4,000 because you'll be like Leroy Petrie. You wouldn't have a hand. So, which is a great Medal of Honor recipient young man. But so I knew exactly when our grenades were going off, and I knew when that grenade went off, I could make another move. So I yelled grenade. They threw a grenade over it because they had never gotten me kind of pinpointed in one position. I'm going grenade, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I went over and grabbed the grenade and I threw it back because I knew the only one that had ever gone off before 13,000. I'm going 9,000, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000. The grenade came back over and I'm going, oh God, and I grabbed it and I threw the grenade back. I'm going 18,000, 19,000, 20,000. The grenade came back over for the 5th time. I said, it's got to go. So I'm at 20-something thousand. I said, it's a grenade. So I rolled over, the grenade went off. I got hit 6 times with shrapnel on my back, and I yelled, and I never said nothing else. And I laid on my back, and I'm looking up like this with the sand dune behind me. And Tommy's yelling, Mike, buddy, Mike, buddy. And I'm not even talking to him because I knew those guys would be coming over. And when they came over, I eliminated those 4 guys. And at that period of time, people started, and Tommy said, Mike, Mike, he saw the guys, the bodies falling. So at that time, he knew I was still alive. He's yelling, Mike. I said, I'm okay. I'm wounded, but I'm okay. He said, they're all falling back. And I said, that's not good. He says, what do you mean it's not good? I said, because they're coming in for the kill. And I didn't know if the tank was coming in. I didn't know they're getting ready to blast away this dune. And I went over and I looked across the lagoon and I counted over almost 100 people coming around the lagoon. And Tommy said, he said, I see, like it was over 600 guys in an MVA battalion, and they were going to the north of the lagoon and the south of the lagoon, and they were going to bring us in for the kill. At that period of time, Tommy said, I have communications with the USS Morgan. They're coming in to give us gunfire support. Woody's coming up north to help rescue us. You fall back because you've been wounded, and I'll cover your retreat. And we had a sand dune behind us about 500 yards, like 5 football fields away. It was a big sand dune, a little bit larger than a sofa here. It was about 8 feet tall. And we fell back, and Tommy saw us falling back. Well, Tommy got it with the law rocket. He's trying to shoot it. And the biggest, the attacking of the enemy, they had already flanked Tommy on the eastern side. Somebody had shot him in the left temple. The bullet entered right over his temple. The bullet exited right over his forehead. He had lost his front lobal part of his brain. His eye socket was completely gone. Part of his cheekbone, and all this was completely gone. Dane come running back, said, Mike, Dawie's dead, Tommy's dead. I said, you stay here. Dane and Quan grabbed me. He's dead, Mike. I said, you stay here, you cover me, I'll go get Tommy. I went back up across the 500 yards. I'm just running zigzag as fast as I could because it's hard to miss a target. That's the reason why the ships zigzag and stuff like that. Got up there. Some bad guys are coming over the top of the dune again. I eliminated them. I grabbed Tommy. I thought he was dead. I threw him on my shoulders. I ran down the embankment of the bunker. The first round came in from the Morgan. It hit on the south side of the embankment, thank God. The concussion blew me approximately 20 feet in the air. I saw Tommy flying over off my shoulders. He landed, and I don't know if you've ever been around when a grenade goes off or a big concussion like that goes off. It's like if somebody was to sneak behind you and cup their hands and hit you in the ears as hard as they can. It's like a concussion in a lot of ways. You lose your equilibrium. I said, God, I'm thinking okay, but I can't get up because every time I tried to get up, I fell back down because my equilibrium wasn't right. I knew that the bad guys were still coming. I said, I got to get up. I got up. I'd grabbed Tommy's AK-47. When I grabbed him, the reason why I knew I only had 1 magazine of ammunition left. I knew Tommy had, when I grabbed his body, I knew he had quite a few magazines left just by the weight of this vest. Went over and picked him up, and he looks up at me, and he opens up that one good eye he's got, because his whole side of his head was gone. On the other side, he said, "Mike, buddy," and he went unconscious again. I picked him up, put him in a fireman's carry, and I started running back. As I'm running back, I'm shooting like this behind me when I see how close the enemy. If somebody would just sat down and took a great shot, they'd have knocked me down. But everybody was just firing and running, so they weren't thinking very clearly. I get back, and there's my boys, Quan and Dang. They see the way I'm running, and they're shooting and covering my retreat. We get back, I said, "Where's Ty?" Ty thought I told him to get in the water and swim, which that's not what I said. Ty wasn't a bad guy. As I told John, he should have never been in that situation before. They said, "What do we do?" I said, "We swim." I put Tommy back on my shoulders, and we did what we call a leapfrog. In other words, I yelled one, Quan would lay down a line of fire, yelled two, not Ty, but Dang would lay down a line of fire, then Quan would roll out, and then I'd fire, and then we just kind of went like that to cut the enemy. We could see that they were coming from the north of us this period of time, and then we got to the water. I got shot through my left calf. I fell to the ground. I picked Tommy up again, and what I did, I used him like a surfboard, because the last thing you do, in the citation, they talk about I inflated his life jacket. That'd be the stupidest thing in the world, because the ways, we had 6 lines of ways we had to go to. And so that it had the problem of washing it back in. So I take him like a surfboard, push him underneath the water, bring him up on the other side, move as fast as I possibly could, and got out. And at that period of time, I grabbed Tommy and put him around on my chest and put my arms underneath him and started breaststroking as hard as I could. I could see Dang out in front of me, but I couldn't see Quan. I looked to the south of me, and there's Quan flowing in the water. Quan had got washed back in. He was shot through his right buttocks. His whole part of his muscle was gone, and his butt was gone. I swam over. I put my life jacket over Tommy's head, which was kind of like an old Mae West, and then put it as a UDT life jacket. I put the harness over my neck. I brought Quan and put him in Tommy's position. I took Quan to put his arms around Tommy, and I breaststroke until we got out of the range of fire. In that period of time, I swam for approximately 3 hours until we finally were picked up by Woody Woodruff, who would never give up. Everybody in that group was all wounded. Of course, Tommy was severely wounded. And 3 hours later, I was picked up by one of the junks. I got on the phone. I called Woody. He had picked up Ty, and Woody was transmitting back and forth with the admiral of the fleet. I got on the thing. I said, "Woody, tell the Newport News to come back in," because I knew that they had a doctor on board. I said, "Tommy is critical. We have another seriously injured with Quan." I said, myself, I said, "I've been wounded 7 times, but nothing critical I'm going to die from." And I said that Dang had 2 pieces of metal embedded in his back. So the Newport News came back around. We started steaming. We got alongside. They sent over a stretcher on a ring. I laid Tommy in the gurney. We went back. I climbed up the ladder, got up there. I couldn't get Tommy through the door, so I grabbed Tommy out of the thing, and I took him down and laid him on the gurney. That period of time, I went and briefed the admiral and came back out. Woody came up, and hadn't been for Woody Woodruff, we would all been dead today. So that's the reason we always had a seal on our insertion and extraction act, and because we never give us the camaraderie of teamwork and believing in each other. So that's what a team's all about, taking care of each other. With the grace of God, Tommy made it. And that was on October 31st, 1972. It was funny, we went back, next day, we medevac Tommy that afternoon. It's like 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, went to Nang. They sent a 141 from Clark's Air Force Base. Like I said, it was the end of the war. They had all these neurosurgeons. We didn't have no neurosurgeons in Vietnam. They flew Tommy back to Clark's. A doctor was there, he was a lieutenant colonel. He helped invent the coal system. He felt he needed to go back and do something during the Vietnam War. His name was Dr. Wally Grant. They made him a lieutenant colonel when he came in because of his knowledge. Wally worked on him. It took us 19 hours to get him medevac. The operation, Tommy's first operation, was almost 20 hours long. November of that year, they finally got him stable. We flew him back to Bethesda, Maryland. And I was found out that I was going to be put in for the Medal of Honor. I got put in for the Medal of Honor, and I received it on October the 15th, not even a year from the operation, from President Nixon. Quan came up to me before I left, and I was giving him some of my stuff, and he's all bandaged up, he's on crutches, and so I said, Mike, I never work with you again. I never work with you again. I said, Quan, why? He says, I always get shot. I always get shot. I said, Quan, but I bring you back alive. He says, good thing, good thing. So I was telling John I supported Quan and Ty both. Dane was later captured and executed during the overtake. And Quan has his whole family now, and they live up near Bremerton, Washington. He has 2 fishing boats. And Ty, which after I found out the real story, he should have never been there in the first place. And he taught college, at a community college in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for 22 years. He remembers the operation, but he lost it all. He has no memory of during the operation. And that's what war does to you. It really does. But with the grace of God, Tommy's still with us today. He lives in Idaho, has a horse races, quarter horses up there. Still my best of friends, and that's the reason we wrote this great book by Honor Bound, and took us 45 years to write it. The funny part of the story is that I went down to see Tommy in the hospital. I said I'd like to have Tommy released for one day to go to the White House to receive the Medal of Honor with me, presented by President Nixon. They said no. As I said, I was a renegade. I said, okay, fine. I went back at 11 o'clock that night. I took Tommy and kidnapped him. And I kept him 4 days instead of just a half a day. And I put him in our hotel under a fictitious name, and they're going nuts trying to find him. And I was put on a report by the Surgeon General, which is a 3-star admiral, and I had to go see Admiral Zumwalt, which was Chief of Naval Operations for Mass. So the funny thing about life is Admiral Zumwalt, I said, you know, Mike Thornton's he said, that young man, Mike Thornton, I was 54 years old, I wasn't young. Because Bob Kerry was getting out of the Senate, which is a very close friend of mine. And Bob sits on our foundation board too, along with my wife and Connie, and Jay, excuse me. And he said he's the only man I've ever known who's had 5 admiral's masts and 1 CNO's mast and still retired the Navy with an honorable discharge. So they said, how do you do that? The Senate said, how do you do that? I said, I'm always right. So, which that's a damn lie too. So at this period of time, I'd like to open up for questions and answers, and anybody who'd like to ask a question or anything like that about the operation. Yes, sir, or world politics today, but this is my answer, okay?
Obviously, a medal like that took a lot of attention, and, I don't want to say fanfare, but, people asking you about it. I mean, was that hard to get used to talking about it?
I didn't talk about it for a long time. But I saw that we were having problems within, when we came back from Vietnam, we were spit on, they threw beer cans at us, we did all kind of stuff. I can't change the past, but I sure can make the future better. And I figure it was time for step up instead of step out. And we have some guys that still don't talk about it. So, you look at what's going on right now in America, I think they reversed their whole attitude, how we take care of our young men and women in the military, and I really feel that it's because of the Vietnam veterans. And you look at some of the major corporations in the world are Vietnam vets, and they've really helped improve and make our country a better place to live. And I'm proud of each and every one of them. When I talk to them, I say, it was you that changed the atmosphere of America. They know that we were treated wrong, but we can't change that. So let's move forward instead of move backwards. Let's learn from this and push it to the limits that we possibly can. And that's what I want to thank the CHIVE for what they're doing. John and Leo, and you guys. I mean, America is not free, ladies and gentlemen. The proud medal I wear around my neck, am I proud of it? Yes, I am. Do I think I deserve it? No, I don't. But who does deserve it are the 2,853,000, have given the utmost. They've given their lives for us to be able to sit in this great office building, to sit here and have camaraderie and enjoy life. So remember, since we've been keeping count, over 2,853,000 have given us this ability to be here today. So that's who the medal belongs to. But the medal belongs to every young man and woman that served before me, my comrades that served with me, and the young men and women who are keeping us safe today overseas. Yes, sir, Leo.
Yeah, what was it like meeting President Nixon?
Great. He's one of my favorite presidents all the time. I mean, hell, what he did was nothing like Clinton and a few of the other boys have done. I mean, good Lord Almighty. I mean, politics is tough.
Tommy, did Tommy receive the Medal of Honor ever?
Yeah, Tommy did an operation. It's called the BAT-21 mission. His mission was in April of 1972, which is Tommy's story and my story is in the book. It wasn't Gene Hackman and Danny Glover. In the movie, it was Danny Glover flying in a Ford Observer plane picking up Gene Hackman. But you have to remember, they're both leftists as they possibly could. And of course, not to mention a warrior like Tommy Norris in the movie, it wouldn't work. So that's Hollywood for you, though.
Got time for about one more question.
Anybody else?
I have kind of a silly question. How big was Tommy?
Tommy, he's about 5'8", weighed about 152 back then. I was soaking wet, and he was wet. Okay, guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for having us here.
One of the best books you'll ever read, by Honor Bound, and you can check it out on Amazon. And I'll tell you, I called this meeting I know a lot of people were excited at the CHIVE because you just heard a once in a lifetime, once in a generation really story. So on behalf of everybody at the CHIVE office and the millions of people tuning in worldwide, thank you for your service.
Thank you, John.
Anything else? Mike Thornton, everybody.
I enjoy talking to Mom and Dad.
All right, let's celebrate the only way we know how, at the Copper Bar. Beer.
Go back to work. Fun's over. I'll be at the bar.